true that TNA or Impact or Global Force Wrestling or whatever the hell you call it these days isn't the force in the industry that it once was. But incredibly, the company has managed to stay in business despite using up at least 7 or 8 of their 9 lives, weathering the financial storm and remaining operational despite most of their top stars having abandoned ship years ago. Viewed as a stepping stone to WWE by some, and as a place for former WWE superstars to come and collect a big fat paycheck to work a lighter schedule by others, many of TNA's best and brightest left the company to test the WWE waters or to return to the place where they made their name in the first place. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Robert Roode, Drew McIntyre, The Hardys, Kurt Angle, Austin Aries, Bully Ray, Eric Young, and hell, even TNA co-founder Jeff Jarrett have all come to work for Vince McMahon after time served in Dixieland. But not every TNA star has signed a contract with the competition, with many of their homegrown heroes remaining loyal to the cause or rejecting a WWE offer in favour of performing elsewhere. Sometimes, though, the offer simply never arrives. In a wrestling world where WWE snaps up just about everyone, it's interesting to look at those who haven't put pen to paper for Titan Sports. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 TNA stars that WWE never signed. And when I say signed, I mean signed to a full-time contract to perform on camera as either an announcer, manager, or wrestler for the main roster or NXT. If you want to get smarky about things, I'm more than happy to ignore you and continue to produce first-class wrestling content for the people who matter. The Hulkamaniacs and jabroni marks without a life that don't know it's a work when you work a work and work yourself into a shoot. Marks. Number 10, Magnus. He's got youth, he's got the body, he's got charisma, he's got the family connections, and he can work. But one thing that Nick Aldis, aka Magnus, has never had is a WWE contract. The NWA World's Champion has just about everything that Vince and company look for in a top-level talent, but, somewhat surprisingly, it doesn't look like there has ever been serious interest in offering him one of their opportunities. Working his way from the very bottom to the tippity top in TNA, the man from Norfolk went from being a lower-tier gladiator type to a respected heavyweight champion who could hang with and even defeat the likes of Styles, Angle, and Sting. With TNA/Impact seemingly in perpetual disarray, it was almost a given that he would be signed by WWE from around 2015 onward. It never happened though, and according to the man himself, somebody very, very successful within the company prevented it from happening for reasons more personal than professional. Let the speculation begin. There's still time for Aldis to become a WWE superstar, however, given that he's still in his early 30s, healthy, and is making headlines as the standard bearer in a rival organization. And I mean, really, how much better would he look if he dropped the 10 pounds of gold for one of those plastic-looking spinner dealies? Come on! Number 9, The Beautiful People. Now plying their trade in Ring of Honor, The Beautiful People were one of the ever-presents in the TNA Knockouts division for many years. Though The Beautiful People as a group has included the likes of Madison Rayne, Lacey Von Erich, and, Billy Cute Kip Gunn, for the purposes of this countdown, we're going to focus solely on its 2 original members, Velvet Sky and Angelina Love. Though they never tagged in WWE, there was in the past at least some interest in both Love and Sky individually. Love was signed to a developmental deal between 2004 and 2007, training in Deep South and then Ohio Valley Wrestling before being released, while Sky made the odd appearance as an extra and even tried out for the 2007 Diva Search, but didn't make the final 8. Which was probably just as well, since not long after that audition she joined TNA and, not long after that, The Beautiful People were born. You'd think that given their success and the fact they had the WWE look, that WWE would be interested, and apparently they were, but the duo, however, didn't want to go there only to see their creation become a sanitized WWE reimagining, and thus opted to stay put. Number 8, Christopher Daniels. Add Christopher Daniels, pro wrestling journeyman and TNA standout, as another that WWE was at least curious about back in the day. In fact, the Fallen Angel was signed to a WWE developmental deal before TNA was even a thing. Daniels trained with the group between 1998 and 2001, making sporadic appearances on shows like Shotgun Saturday Night, Jacked, and Heat in that time. It was as a star in TNA's high-octane X division that Daniels really showed what he was all about to an international audience, and his series of thrillers with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles still rank as perhaps the best matches in the promotion's history. While certainly not lacking talent, Daniels perhaps had one thing working against him though: time. Though he was in great shape and his work spoke for itself, Daniels is now 50 years old, and WWE typically like to hire young unless the talent in question is a legend or a proven main eventer elsewhere. According to Daniels himself, this is the heart of the matter, and whenever WWE were interested in years gone by, he was always under contract anyway. Now wrestling for and mentoring the men and women of AEW, Daniels is still wrestling for one of the biggest companies in the world. Only it's Tony Khan and not Mr. McMahon who signs his checks. Number 7. The Motor City Machine Guns. It's fair to say that tag team wrestling has never been the top priority in WWE, or a top priority, or even a priority, or even perhaps a fleeting thought in Vince McMahon's mind as he's doing hack squats and eating a protein bar in WWE HQ's gym at 2:30 AM on a Thursday. It's perhaps best then that the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, never got signed by the world's biggest doubles wrestling wasteland. Shelley and Sabin were allowed to tear it up in TNA and had some incredible matches with the likes of Beer Money and a couple of young bucks called Generation Me, winning the tag team titles and being named the best tag team of 2007. While the duo were tearing it up in rings 4 and 6-sided, WWE's own tag team scene was in a state of disrepair. With their size and wrestling style, it's hard to imagine that the Motor City Machine Guns would have enjoyed the same success as, say, Paul London and Brian Kendrick, perhaps WWE's most comparable team from the era. Sabin and Shelley have popped their head in the WWE door, however, with each guest coaching at the Performance Center and Shelley working a match with another noted partner of his, Kushida, reforming the Time Splitters to lose a one-off match in the 2020 Dusty Rhodes Tag Classic. Number 6. ODB. ODB, or One Dirty Bitch if we're being all formal about it, was something of a TNA lifer, winning the Knockouts title on 4 occasions, as well as being the final Knockouts Tag Team Champion during a run that spanned from 2007 all the way to 2019. Before she made it there, ODB was getting a look from WWE as a signee to their OVW developmental system in 2006 and 2007. While grafting in Louisville, Kentucky, she would cross paths with performers who would get called up to the main roster, like Beth Phoenix, Natalya Neidhart, and Katie Lee. But she was never part of the plan, revealing in an interview that the then head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, didn't see her as a future part of the Divas division, and that it was actually Triple H visiting the school on a scouting mission that encouraged her to take an offer from TNA. It's not entirely surprising that there was no interest in her from WWE at a time where most of the new so-called divas were plucked from the lingerie section of Johnny Ace's Sticky Sears catalogue. Going to TNA was undoubtedly the best thing for her and her career, as she was a regularly featured part of the show and treated like a member of the family there. Number 5. The Amazing Red. The Amazing Red, a classic case of truth in advertising, since he was amazing and, well, he liked to wear the colour red. One of the most innovative high flyers of his or any era, Red was a standout on the East Coast independents and in Ring of Honor before becoming a fixture of TNA's X Division during their early days. Their version of Rey Mysterio, albeit without the mask, Red was usually one of the show's highlights, but sadly, his high-risk style took its toll on his body, particularly his knackered knees. A couple of major surgeries led to several long layoffs and even a temporary retirement, but thankfully, Red was able to soldier on once fully fit. But even when healthy, it seems WWE weren't too bothered because Red was never offered a contract, despite having the odd tryout/dark match, including a 2005 outing with CM Punk and a 2012 look-in before the No Way Out pay-per-view. Red almost made it to the WWE for the 2016 Cruiserweight Classic, but a bad ankle injury suffered shortly before the tournament ruled him out. Despite further flirting with hanging up his boots, Red is still wrestling today and would be an asset to something like 205 Live. Perhaps he could have a word with his cousin, current WWE superstar Zelina Vega, about making it happen. Number 4. The American Wolves. Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards were two well-traveled and respected wrestlers, having enjoyed success in various US indies like PWG and Ring of Honor, and in Japan and Europe when they showed up for an extended tryout with WWE at the tail end of 2013. Though they impressed people at the camp and even had a match with the Ascension on NXT TV, WWE chose to pass, with Papa H not being convinced due to their small stature and a noticeable screw-up in the Ascension match. Their fate unknown by the wider wrestling wrestling community, the Wolves teased that they had signed a contract and most assumed they were on their way to Florida for NXT. Well, they were bound for the Sunshine State, but to wrestle for TNA, making quite the impact, pun absolutely intended, by winning the tag team titles a month after debuting, their first of 5 impressive reigns. Edwards has also become an X Division and TNA World Champion in his time with the company. The Wolves inevitably disbanded and feuded, and with WWE still not interested, Edwards remained while Richards left the business completely to pursue a career outside of wrestling. Number 3, Jay Lethal. It's a bit of a mystery as to why Jay Lethal has never made it to WWE for even as much as a dark match or tryout. He has a wealth of experience, having wrestled on the independent level since he was 16, can have a good match with just about anyone, and as his stint as the Randy Savage-inspired Black Machismo in TNA proved, has a bucket full of charisma and can ham it up as a character. Lethal made his mark first in Ring of Honor and then TNA, where he was a multiple-time X Division and Tag Team Champion and feuded with legends like Ric Flair, the Nature Boy himself previously expressing his bewilderment as to why Lethal wasn't signed with WWE. Having left TNA in 2011, Lethal returned to Ring of Honor and now holds the all-time record for combined reigns as their world champion, 567 days for the stat nerds. Usually, WWE would notice somebody making waves and garnering rave reviews and reach out, but Lethal hasn't made the jump apparently because neither party sees the benefit in it. WWE aren't interested, and neither is he. There were talks once upon a time, but Lethal is content to work elsewhere while running his wrestling school, Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling's Lethal Academy. And to that, you simply have to say, fair play. Number 2, Hernandez. Sean Hot Stuff Hernandez was something of an underground sensation in the early 2000s, building his reputation on the independent and international circuits, and even cropping up on WWE television for a couple of squash match losses to Crash Holly and Haku. Boy is one of those things quite unlike the other. He also appeared here and there for TNA, but didn't really do much of note until 2006, when he was teamed with Homicide and given Conan as a manager, becoming the very popular heel stable Latin American Exchange, or LAX for short. After that had run its course, Hernandez became something of a tag specialist, variously forming alliances with Matt Morgan, Ana Quia, and then Chavo Guerrero. A hell of a hot tag, Hernandez won TNA's tag straps a grand total of 5 times and routinely looked impressive, performing some amazing high-flying moves for a man of his size, along with his sometimes terrifying border toss finisher. You'd think that WWE would perhaps give a call to Supermex, but if they did, it's never been disclosed, and regardless, Hernandez has never signed. He still wrestles for TNA today, and as he approaches 50, it's highly unlikely that a WWE run is forthcoming. Number 1, Abyss. Perhaps one of TNA's most memorable original creations, nobody gave more for that company than Abyss. He would roll around in thumbtacks and barbed wire and on glass and whatever else his superiors asked of him, having been around since the very first TNA weekly pay-per-view back in 2002. A hard-working big man who could bump and had a standout gimmick, WWE were at various times interested in his services and reached out to the monster on several occasions about coming into the fold. The most notable of those was in 2006, when WWE reps offered Abyss a deal that included a program and WrestleMania match with The Undertaker. According to the man himself, he would have debuted at the 2007 Royal Rumble and clashed with The Phenom at Mania 23, which still ranks as the second highest grossing WWE pay-per-view ever. Though the offer was certainly a tempting one, Abyss chose to remain loyal to the company that had made him a star and continued to work with TNA until 2019. The great irony, of course, is that the man behind the mask, Christopher Parks, is now on WWE's payroll as a backstage producer. I just hope he's not advising talents on whether or not to take massive main event matches at huge shows for large sums of money.